Today, we are tackling a huge, and I mean huge question that's bubbling up everywhere. Is the US dollar's long reign as the world's top currency actually coming to an end?
You see headlines like this popping up. And yeah, it sounds a little dramatic, right? The death of the dollar. It's easy to just brush that off as hype. But here's the thing. There are some very real, very powerful moves being made behind the scenes that are forcing everyone, and I mean everyone, to pay close attention.
So to really get what's happening, you have to picture the global economy as a giant chessboard. For decades, one player has controlled the most powerful piece on the board. But that's changing. Right now, a powerful group of other nations is banding together, and they're trying to change the fundamental rules of the game.
Okay, so who are these players making the big moves? Well, let's meet the alliance known as BRICS. And trust me, this is way more than just a catchy acronym. It's a block of nations that is actively reshaping the world economy as we speak.
First off, let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale we're talking about here, because the numbers are kind of mind-blowing. With their latest expansion, the BRICS countries now represent almost half, let me say that again, half of the entire world's population. That is an incredible amount of people.
And it's not just about population. Their economic muscle, just as massive. Together, the BRICS economies now make up more than 30% of the world's entire GDP. In fact, they recently officially overtook the G7. So this isn't some forecast about the future. This is happening right now.
Now, this alliance didn't just pop up overnight, not at all. The whole idea actually started way back in 2001. Then, in 2011, it got more formal when South Africa joined. And just recently, in 2024, it took its most dramatic step yet by inviting a whole new wave of members. This has been a slow, strategic buildup over more than 20 years.
But they are going up against a titan. And this chart right here shows you just how big that titan is. The US dollar is involved in nearly 90% of all global currency trades. It's not just a currency, it's basically the default language of money, the air that global finance breathes.
And that brings us to the absolute heart of this whole story, this push for something called de-dollarization. So why now? Why are so many powerful countries suddenly so motivated to find a different way of doing business? What's the big deal?
So let's quickly define what we're talking about. Put simply, de-dollarization is just countries trying to rely less on the US dollar. Think of it like this. For decades, you had to use the dollar for almost any major international business. De-dollarization is these countries saying, hey, let's start trading with each other directly using our own money.
And here's where we get to the real why behind the push. Because this is about more than just money. It's about power. The dollar's dominance gives the United States an incredible amount of leverage. It essentially allows Washington to use the global financial system as a tool to enforce its foreign policy.
And if you want to see that tool in action, look no further. When the US froze $300 billion of Russia's own money, or kicked them off the main global payment network, SWIFT, it sent a shockwave around the world. The message was crystal clear. If you hold your money in dollars, you are exposed to US policy. And for a lot of countries, that was a massive wake-up call.
So, as you can imagine, this has kicked off a huge debate. And it's a fascinating one. On one hand, you have people saying this is a genuine financial revolution that's going to reshape the world. On the other, you have people saying it's all just a mirage, a paper tiger with no real bite.
All right, let's break down the arguments. In one corner, you've got the people who say this is a very real threat. They point out the trade between BRICS countries is exploding, they're starting to use their own currencies, and now with members like Saudi Arabia, they control a massive chunk of the world's oil. But then in the other corner, you have the skeptics. They point to the dollar's deep, deep roots in the system, and maybe most importantly, the intense rivalries inside the BRICS group itself.
And that point about internal divisions, it is a big one. This isn't just speculation from outsiders. You have key leaders from within the group, like India's external affairs minister, saying it publicly. I mean, you've got historic rivals like India and China, or Saudi Arabia and Iran, all sitting at the same table trying to agree on something as huge as a new currency. That's complicated, to say the least.
And the hard data really shows the dollar's incredible staying power. Just look at what central banks around the world are actually holding in their vaults. A whopping 60% of all global reserves are still in US dollars. The euro is a distant second.
You see, that number isn't just money. It's a measure of global trust and stability built over decades, and that is incredibly hard to replace.
Okay, so we've got this global chess match, this power struggle, but what does any of this actually mean for you, for your wallet, for your investments? Well, when the big pieces on the global chessboard start moving, the ripples can be felt by absolutely everyone.
So how could this affect you? Well, for starters, think about the big U.S. companies that are probably in your retirement account or investment portfolio. This global shift could create some serious headwinds for them. Imagine a world where U.S. tech giants face new trade barriers in nearly half the globe, or where global supply chains get redrawn, creating a ton of new competition. But look, big changes don't just mean risk, they also create opportunity. So what are the experts suggesting? First, diversify your investments globally. You'll want exposure to those high-growth emerging markets that could actually benefit. Second, consider hedging against the dollar. Assets like gold, for example, have historically done well when the dollar is under pressure. And finally, keep a very close eye on commodities. With the BRICS bloc now including so many major oil and metal producers, that's a sector that could get very interesting.
So, where does that leave us? Is this the actual dawn of a new financial world order? Or is this whole BRICS alliance just a house divided, destined to fracture under its own internal pressures? Whatever the answer, one thing is for sure. The chessboard is being redrawn right before our eyes, leaving us with a massive question about what the future of money really looks like.